What's up, everybody out there in YouTube world, Facebook world, social media world, the world, etc., etc. Thank you for watching another episode of Musings with MGL. I'm your host, as always, MGL. All right, going to get right into it today. Big election last week. Big election. Donald Trump won. I would imagine most of the people who watch this channel are probably happy with that because most of you in here are probably, conservative-minded people, pro-Second Amendment people usually are. So most of you are probably happy with that outcome. I know I am. Look, I'm not going to hide it. I obviously voted for Trump. I wanted him over the shit show that would have been Kamala Harris. So big win for Trump. Now, the question is, and I've been getting this from a lot of people ever since the election, is what does this mean for the Second Amendment? Is it good news, bad news, mediocre news, any news? What does it mean? All right, so here's my opinion. What this means for the Second Amendment is basically nothing, I guess, for lack of a better term. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Obviously, Trump winning is good news for the Second Amendment because Trump doesn't care about the Second Amendment, okay? He's not pro-Second Amendment. He's not. He's not pro-Second Amendment, but he's not anti-Second Amendment either. He really just doesn't care about it. Guns aren't a priority to him. I don't think he cares about them one way or the other. He has a bunch of other things he wants to get done. They're not on his priority list. He doesn't care. So he's not pro-Second Amendment. He's not anti-Second Amendment. That alone makes him better than the other people who are running because they are adamantly anti-Second Amendment. Both Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have called for, banning assault weapons, doing mandatory gun buybacks. They are anti-Second Amendment. So just the simple fact that Trump's not anti-Second Amendment is obviously good. But because he's not pro-Second Amendment, that's why I say it doesn't really make much of a difference to the Second Amendment, him being president, because he's not going to do negative things. So again, that is good for the Second Amendment. But he's not going to do positive things either. Anybody out there who thinks Trump's going to make it a priority to pass, let's say, the Hearing Protection Act, which would remove suppressors from the NFA statute. It's not going to happen. If anybody thinks he really cares or is going to make it a priority to do reciprocity for a concealed weapons license, it ain't going to happen because he doesn't care. I know there's an old video from 2023 floating around out there all over Facebook and the interwebs that everybody keeps pointing to and saying, look, we're going to get this. Yeah, that was an old thing. It wasn't really a campaign thing. And again, he had 4 years to do it last time he was in there when it was actually introduced, I think, a couple of times, and it never went anywhere. He didn't push for it. He didn't call for it, etc., etc. He is a lot like, I think, Ron DeSantis in that sense, in that guns aren't really a priority for Ron DeSantis either. He'll every now and then say something like, oh, I'm for open carry, but he won't push it. He won't call the legislature to do it. He won't call up people that are in there and have private conversations and say, hey, push it. He doesn't go out and make a bunch of brouhaha about it that says, I want this on my desk, by next Friday. So he doesn't care one way or the other. He's not going to do anything negative against the Second Amendment, but DeSantis also isn't pushing Second Amendment stuff either. If something pro-Second Amendment lands on his desk, he'll sign it. And I think Trump would be the same way. If somehow it got through Congress and made it past the Senate, even though they don't have 60 votes because they're still a filibuster, so it's never coming out of the Senate. Even though they have 53 votes, they have a majority, but they don't have a filibuster-proof majority, so it's never coming out of Congress. But if for somehow it did come out of Congress and it landed on his desk, I think he'd sign it because, again, I don't think he cares one way or the other. He would just sign it to make some NRA people happy, and then he'd move on about his day. But he's not going to push it. He's not going to lobby for it. He's not going to call up the Senate president or the House majority leader and say, hey, I want this on my desk. Push it. I don't think he cares one way or the other. So that's what I mean when I say it really doesn't mean much for the Second Amendment because you're not going to see any pro-Second Amendment legislation come during a Trump term, but you're also not going to see any anti-Second Amendment legislation either. The one thing I will say that is going to be good is he's now going to have control over the ATF. So, for example, he is trying to appoint, we'll see if he can get through the confirmation hearing, but he's trying to appoint Matt Gaetz to be Attorney General, which would put him in charge of the DOJ, which would put him in charge of the ATF. If you can get somebody like that in charge of the ATF, what I think will be positive for gun owners is he's going to rein in those guys over there. Because we know recently the ATF's been out of control because of the Biden administration giving them all these orders to do things that they can't get through the legislature. That's why you saw the stabilization braces get banned or reclassified as machine guns and have to get NFA stamps, because that was a directive from the Biden administration. The zero tolerance policy on FFLs, where now anytime an FFL makes one simple mistake on their paperwork, they're automatically going for license revocation, whereas before they would just, reprimand them, tell them not to do it again. Sometimes they wouldn't even write notes in their file. They would just give them a verbal warning because they didn't care. But Biden instituted a zero tolerance policy, which all of a sudden these FFLs started getting revocation notices whenever they had any sort of problem with their paperwork. So I think if you get somebody like Matt Gaetz in there, or if he doesn't get through whoever his actual next appointment is going to be, just reining in the ATF would be a huge win, because they have been out of control lately. You won't see any of these bullshit administrative orders come out reclassifying things. But remember, Trump is the one who issued the bump stock ban because he thought it would be good and get people off of his back and kind of calm down the people who were yelling about things. So he is prone to do things that are not Second Amendment if he thinks it might benefit him politically, and he's not prone to stick his neck out there for something that just isn't a priority for him. It's just not. So look, I'm happy that he won, because the shit show this country would have turned into if the other two knuckleheads had gotten in there would just be outrageous. So our rights as a Second Amendment, I believe, for now, are status quo, which is better than what they would have been had the other people got in and not Trump. But anybody thinks that this is going to be like a positive, that we're going to start seeing all this pro-Second Amendment regulations or legislation come out, I don't think it's going to happen. I think you'll see some reining in of the regulatory nonsense. And, of course, we still got the Supreme Court, who will hopefully continue to give us these pro-Second Amendment rulings, which is another good reason why Trump won, because there's probably going to be a couple vacancies between Alito and Thomas that would have been unfortunately filled by Kamala Harris, but now they can be filled by Trump, which will keep the conservative majority in there and will help us out in the long run. So obviously, wins for the Second Amendment. Don't get me wrong, wins for the Second Amendment. But anybody who thinks we're going to get some huge pro-Second Amendment legislation to come out of Congress and to be championship by the president, I don't think it's going to happen. So we'll take all the victories we can get, and I'm in a good mood about it, so we'll kind of see how things shake out. And then we will keep on him. Everybody in the Second Amendment community needs to keep on him. If he does start doing any sort of anti-Second Amendment nonsense, we need to let him know and have our voices be heard. So that's my thought on the election. That's my thought on what another President Trump term means for the Second Amendment. So thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe down below. I picked up a lot of new subscribers lately. My numbers have kind of shot through the roof, so that's great. Keep it going. Keep liking, keep sharing, keep commenting. I really appreciate it. So thanks for watching as always. In the meantime, until the next video, stay safe, stay healthy, stay vigilant, and as always, carry on.